Hello and welcome to episode 19 of Intruder Theatre in the Making podcast. I'm your host, Remi Rachuba, and thank you so much for tuning in. Now, today I've got another guest in this episode, and that is my co-producer of Intruder, Ed Littlewood. Ed, hello, how are you doing?
I'm good, Remy. I'm really looking forward to having a chat with you because we've been working on this a long time. We've had ups and downs, side swipes, and finally, we can actually just get down to the nitty gritty and have a really good chat about the process, about how it all happened, how it's going to go forward. It's really exciting stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, nitty-gritty of things. Yeah, so do you have any recollection of when, how we met? Yes, I do, but do you have
I
any?
do, I do. I remember it very well. It was in the Traverse Theatre, Edinburgh,
Yeah,
for a show called The Builders, directed by Tim Licata.
yeah,
And it was one, funny enough, it was one of my ever, my most enjoyable experiences, even though the show itself was a work in development.
yeah.
So it was only, what did we do? 2 days of actual performing and working together,
Mm-hmm,
an actual development process.
mm-hmm.
But it was on a work of, what do you call it, a dramatic work for the theatre. Um, that was so exciting. It was about a house. And the builders came in, and there were loads of the cast. The cast was one of the biggest casts. So I'd worked
I
with at
know,
the time,
I know,
and there were loads of you. There were loads of you,
I
and
know.
you were all so excited. And some of the names were great. And we did the showing. It was lovely, and basically we couldn't go forwards with the project because it was so expensive. You couldn't,
I
it
know.
was
Oh,
basically a
yeah,
show about a house falling down.
yeah,
Um, and just through that process, I got to know you, and it was
yeah,
interesting. You just gave me a whole new perspective on, Polish theatre, bringing
yeah.
your sort of your methodology, I suppose, towards making theatre as an actor, and it was just really interesting, very
Yeah,
interesting.
that was a good. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed working on that, and the cast was incredible. I couldn't actually believe that Tim and you assembled so many amazing people that I hadn't actually known before I even joined. So, and I actually maybe I think it was better that I didn't know who was involved in it. But then we bumped into each other at Fringe 12 when you told me about a restorative justice system, right? You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Because you had similar, I mean, no, similar incident or something like that, wasn't it?
I'll tell you. I was driving along. I had my child in the back. She was maybe 4, and we were at the traffic lights, and they didn't pull off. But it was a
Mm-hmm.
long time. It wasn't, So I popped the horn, um, and this guy, heavy set guy, stormed out, started punching the windows, really aggressive, awful, violent. Road rage.
Yeah.
Anyway, there were other people who witnessed it. He pulled off, he zoomed away, and someone had called the police further down. It was just outside Edinburgh. And further, we were going towards Edinburgh. And just as we were coming into the city, the police stopped him, literally a
Mm-hmm.
roadblock. They'd seen it
Yeah.
happen. And he didn't realize I had a little child in the back, and he was screaming and swearing and everything. It was horrific. So they charged him, and part of the process of him being charged,
Yeah.
and I don't know what would you call it, the process of any punishment, for want of a
Mm.
better word, was talking to us about it, apologizing, and it was called sacro. And I've got to admit,
Yeah.
I can't remember what it stands for, but it was this process whereby you're together in a room with a mediator, and
Mm.
you go through this process that he apologizes, um,
Mm.
they apologize, and you
Yeah.
go, okay, I accept your apology. This is how I felt about it. I was really
Yeah.
upset, and my child, it was quite horrific actually. Anyway, the offices of Sacro were opposite my office, my
Right.
work office in Out of the Blue Theatre, at a drill hall. And I don't know, how did we first get to talk about it? I don't know. I think maybe when you approached me about Intruder, you told me about it.
I
And
think I think I was there. I remember I was at the Fringe. I came from Glasgow just for one day to see a couple of performances, and I bumped into you, and I think I told you that I'm working on this piece about assault, and then not that I was even like you were like, oh Remi, what are you up to? Whatever, like you chat. And then you told me about that incident and then restorative justice system, which I had never heard before. And all of a sudden, I remember when we were standing, it was like at I think down, yeah, a church or something. I just thought, wow, I've never heard of anything like that before.
yeah,
That you can even face, people. It just seemed so right for my solo piece. It was just I couldn't even imagine. I didn't know anything, like I couldn't even see that anything like that existed. That's what I remember.
yeah,
And that gave me an idea to, wow, I think this is the what I need to have in my play. But I knew it then, but I also knew that it would take some time for me to get to that point to work on it. And it did, because actually it took about 4 years. But it was because of that conversation
yeah.
that I thought, this is it. It's because of Ed. And this is also why I always thought Ed needs to be part of the creative team, because he gave me this idea. He was meant to tell me about this. So he is like part of the play.
Honestly, when we were talking about it, it just when we sort of re-talked about it, and me coming on board as a producer, it was literally a shared experience.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful term, but we'd shared the same awful, traumatic, experience. We'd been through something, and this organization for me helped me deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Emotionally, it was my child. It wasn't
Yeah.
even me. So it's like for yourself. Obviously, that's so powerful. But for me, it was that a child was involved.
Yeah. Well, it's I think it's very powerful. I never went through that
Powerful.
process,
That's the word.
but I love this whole idea of, facing the perpetrators, and I think it was great. So thank you so much for that. But then, of course, we then chatted when I was, in Old Street, and then we talked about working on ACE, which was great. But I really want to go back to, your background and ask where did it start for you? Why did you go into producing? Why would you, what was how did it start? Where was it? Where does Ed's story start?
Oh my God, Remy, that's such a big question. How can you? That's huge. That's huge.
I know
Um,
that's like
I,
an MA thesis.
honestly, it's really big. It's because I'm not a manager. I'm not an administrator particularly. What I trained as an actor.
Right.
I went to Leicester de Montfort University and said, look, could I please come on your course for arts administration, which is
Yeah.
fairly obviously the administration of the arts,
Mm.
management, that side of things. And they said, no, you're doing too much performance. You need to go train as a performer, because I was singing and acting and things at the
Yeah.
time. and I must have come across in the interview
Hmm.
that side of things. So I went away and I did that. I went to the Royal Academy of Music, did musical
Mm.
theatre with Mary Hammond, and then um, graduated, obviously. Postgraduate musical theatre, did lots of stuff, lots of acting, performing. Did videos. I did one for the Royal Navy. Went on
Mm.
their flagship, the Ark Royal. Loads of stuff, loads of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and then a job opportunity came up at the Young Vic.
Hmm.
Right at the time, I don't know, but maybe I'd been through a slow patch. I don't know. Maybe I was insecure at the time. I was in London. I was having
Mm.
an amazing time. Had lots of connections, meeting lots of people, seeing lots of shows, and I don't know. Maybe it caught me an off time. But this job came up, production administrator, Young Vic.
Right.
I went for it, and it was a long old process, really long. I can't tell you. It was advertised everywhere. You can imagine the stage. There's just everywhere.
Mm.
But I got it. I actually got it, and I was like, "No,
Wow.
I'm going to go for this." I got it, and it was on the same. It's part of the process. I was getting a mortgage on my flat.
Mm.
I was offered a part in Joseph, a Technicolor Dreamcoat, as one of the smaller brothers, younger brothers, and as a younger brother, as part of that particular production team, they double as stage management, which is
Right.
fine. That's what you got to do. That's what you got to
Yeah.
do. But at the same time, I was getting a mortgage. There was no way I could afford a mortgage and be an actor and a stage manager, in London. It
Mm.
wasn't going to
Yeah.
happen. And then this came along, so I got it, I jumped on it, and that's when a love of just bringing people together. At that
Oh.
stage, it wasn't about finding the money. It wasn't about finding
Yeah.
the money. It was about working with people, bringing casts together, working with casting agents, going, look, these guys are on equity. The budget is an equity budget. Um, that's what the Young Vic can afford.
Yeah.
But we want your actor.
Yeah.
And the casting agent would like, no, 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 sorry, it's not happening. But then you'd have to negotiate in a small way yourself, and then you might pass it up to the producer. They take it
Right.
on, and it was really, eye opening, eye opening. So I got a taste for it, a love for it. I had done a little stint, quite a long stint at the Royal Opera House,
Oh, wow.
where I don't know, sort of found out about the processes and procedures of
Hmm.
theatre production.
Right.
And then it went from there. And this, the Young Vic was the start of it all, really. Yeah.
So you kind of, for you, so which I'm now recalling now. So it's not that you went, okay, I'm going to be a producer one day. It was more kind of natural process that you went from performing into producing admin. That's how it went, but it was still in the arts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was very much for me
Yeah.
personally. I'd done so much training, and it wasn't about the money, but it was just about the time and the emotion of
Hmm.
performing, that sort of thing. It was very important that sort of administration and everything, it was going to be in the arts,
Yeah.
and those were my networks.
Yeah.
I was in London for nearly 10 years, and then subsequently Edinburgh, for another 8 or 9 years. And it was how can I utilize all of that knowledge, all of that, what I've learned through performing, and
Yeah.
actually turn this into something that, if I haven't made it, and this is I suppose this is the kicker, if I haven't, as a performer, made
Hmm.
it after, I think it was, say, 10 years in London,
Yeah.
I just wanted to see if I could bring those skills to bear on another avenue,
Mm-hmm.
of theatre. And
Yeah.
I knew I had the. There are so many different skills, technology, people skills, admin. Just my God, the processes and the attention to detail.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's for every job, isn't it? Really.
So
I
you kind of, I'm just thinking, you stopped performing, but then for a performer to be able to actually do admin work, a lot of people are like, oh, well, not a lot of people can do that.
I tell you what,
To be really
I
on
know
it.
where you're going in naughty boy. I absolutely. One of the things was I knew that when I was in a casting room,
Hmm.
suite, whatever, uh, I knew what was good and what was bad, what was quality, what was you just not right. You know,
Right.
and that's what all of that performance, that training brought to my professionalism, I suppose.
Ah,
Um,
right. Okay.
I could bring. I knew what made a good production
Yeah. Hmm.
because I think it can maybe call. I had a really good basis in the
Hmm.
industry.
Yeah.
In the
So you
industry,
kind of went, okay, when I'm in a casting session or audition and you see what other people are doing, that performance background help you decide, oh, this is good, this is not good, this could be
it was
better.
more. No, absolutely, but it was more. It was more. It is that, but it's more. Okay, they're not showing their best at the moment.
Right.
How can I bring in a very short audition time? Say you've got 10 minutes,
Yeah.
less a lot of the time, a lot less.
Yeah.
How can I very, very quickly bring out the best in that actor so that they know what we're looking for?
Yeah.
A lot of people come in thinking they know what we're looking for, and actually, it's not. It's versatility. It's this, is that, whatever it is. Um, and we need to know, for instance, we need to know that that performer, that actor, can take direction really
Hmm.
quickly. They
Yeah.
might be a really quite well-known name, but
Hmm.
if they're not going to listen to my director and take that direction really quickly, then they're used to me because they're wasting my time. They're creating friction. It's that sort of ego
Yeah.
thing,
Okay.
as well. If they can leave their ego at the door, brilliant, brilliant. You
Okay.
know.
So then, because you said you were there for what, 9 years, but how can you explain to me one thing? Because you work in Scotland and then you are here, well, in England. So did you move from Scotland to London to train, or when you were working at the Young Vic, and did you then decide to stay here? How did that story evolve? You know.
Yeah. Well, I trained in London. Worked as a jobbing actor for about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Within that time, I was at the Royal Opera House. I was then at the Young Vic, and by
Mm-hmm.
that stage, my skills were really transferable,
Mm-hmm.
which was a lovely, lovely thing.
Yeah.
All of the things I could do. I mean, maybe it kind of ties in with the pandemic a little bit in a very strange way. Um, the skills are transferable, so I can work from home. I can work almost in any remote office.
Yeah.
Occasionally, obviously, with performances, casting, and things, I need to be there. But we have an office in Edinburgh, London, and Bristol, and so essentially, after London, we went up to Edinburgh. I went up to Edinburgh. Had an office up there for a little while. Worked with a number of companies. I was
Yeah.
freelance, so I was a freelance producer, and that was the. I worked after the Young Vic. I worked at Theatre Cryptic, which is a
Oh yeah, I remember.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Kathy Boyd, Claire Moran, and they're very. I don't care what I say, but sort of. Um, they're sort of music based,
Hmm.
with some drama, with an element of theatre. Very, very um, renowned company,
Yeah.
arts company up in
Are
Scotland.
they still around?
Pardon?
Are they still around? Do they still?
Ah, very much so. Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. 'Cause I haven't
They
heard
hold
from
big
God. Yeah.
festivals, big
Okay.
music festivals, and no, they're doing really well.
Yeah.
Um, and then also after that, I went freelance,
Yeah.
and that's when sort of the adventure began.
Right.
Because I worked with different companies. I worked with dance companies, straight theatre companies,
Hmm.
site-specific companies,
Yeah.
all sorts of different theatre companies.
Yeah.
And then this is where the funding things come in, the funding
Yeah.
issues, challenges. Um, yeah, yeah.
So
So
now
that was
speaking
the
of
next.
funding, yeah, do you see like, you produce things in England, in Scotland, do you see a difference? Is the process the same? I mean, of course, we've got Creative Scotland, here we've got Arts Council England. Do you see a difference? Is there a difference in getting funding and people approaches to funding? What is, because it's actually very, very interesting. What is your take on it?
Oh, it's massive. It's massive. In Scotland,
Yeah,
oh, it's such a the community, the arts community, whether it's sort of the administration of funds through Creative Scotland
yeah.
or local government sort of sources, wherever, it is so much. Although the company might be quite not disparate, I can't quite think of the word, but far flung, should we say? You've got
Hmm.
Highlands and Islands, you've got Dumfries and Galloway, right across to East Lothian and down to the borders. Um, Actually, the arts sector up there is connected like a spider's web. It is brilliant. If you have an industry meetup,
Yeah.
maybe it's the Federation of Scottish Theatre, maybe
Yeah.
it's whatever it is, people will come. They'll come from Orkney, they'll come from Shetland. They want to
Yeah.
be there, and the people organising it make it possible for those people to be there, and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
England's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. I'm going to say it. There's more people wanting more money, more organizations, companies, people,
Yeah.
artists,
Yeah.
and you do, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit later, but you will get an artist who has maybe an incredible idea. They're
Yeah.
desperately trying to find some money, funding
Yeah.
to put it on. And they're up against this huge machine called the Arts Council of England, ACE,
Yeah.
and it's tricky, it can take a long time. There are loads of hoops. You have to know exactly what to say in each individual funding application.
Yeah.
I have to say that the Arts Council are very helpful.
Yeah.
The helpline's brilliant. They get back to you very quickly. What we found with Intruder, I think you did particularly, was that you can approach someone and then you have almost an individual relationship. So
Yeah.
you can talk to someone, and that's really, really helpful.
Yeah.
But the sort of overlying challenge is that it's massive. It's almost county by county. So, is
Hmm.
Bristol, for instance, where I'm sitting right now, do they have deprived areas? Are you
Hmm.
applying the money you're applying for? Is that for a deprived area? Is it
Yeah.
for, it's not a tick box exercise, but it does feel
Hmm.
like that. So can you tick
Yeah.
this box, this? And I think a lot of people try and do that in their application.
Yeah.
You know, can I crowbar in that
Hmm.
we're serving this demographic,
Yeah.
which does feel wrong. I think you'd love to serve every demographic possible,
Yeah.
and I don't really want to use the word minority, but that's sort of what you're trying to aim for. can we evidence that we're doing this work and the funding is going towards work for this section of the community, this section. I think it should be for everyone, and if you can focus, absolutely brilliant. But the only way to get it is to demonstrate that you can do it almost to as many of those sections of society as possible.
Yeah.
And that's very tricky. Really
I
tricky.
know. It is tricky. But then for anyone who, you know what, wants to go into producing, or, you know, yeah, anyone who wants to go into producing, are there any things like, you know, what if anyone, what, let's say someone who is listening to the podcast is thinking of producing or becoming a producer, any things that they would need to bear in mind, or what kind of you know, what makes a good producer, or any kind of tips for aspiring producers you would have, or what people need to do, where would they start?
Absolutely.
What would you say?
I've got, you know, my number one is go and see shows. Go and see shows, meet as many people as possible.
Right.
As a producer, if you're talking, and I'm not talking sort of, I'm sort of mid-level. If I'm being really honest, I'm industry mid-level. But it depends what you're talking. Are you talking, you know, commercial sector? Are you talking not-for-profit, so charitable, you know, funding with the Arts Council of England? It depends which sector you're talking about, really. But across the board, go and see as much as you can,
Right.
My killer thing, if you're going into the commercial sector, is go and see stuff, because you will never, it's very unlikely, unless you've got a best friend. There's all sorts of things. There's books out there that are very readily available that tell you how to raise money. But in the commercial sector, it is tricky, because you have to persuade someone to part with at least £500, if not upwards of £2,000 to £5,000 per block of, you know, what you're getting back. But the only way you're going to meet those people is to be in their environment. So if they come and see a show, they're going to go and see, you know, the opening night of something at the Bristol Old Vic, something at the Lyceum in Edinburgh, something in London, whatever. They will be there. If you can be in their environment, you know, you will be able to maybe start a conversation, at least hand them a business card, at least, you know, don't go in and go, look, I've got a new show, I need some money, you're a big name. Just go in, could I have a coffee? You know, this, you know, it's lovely to see you here. You know, would you mind if I send you a quick email, or, you know, whatever. You just have to be where they might be, so you can chat to them. In the not-for-profit sector, it's again just see everything. You know, see everything you can, so that you know about the names in the industry, who people are, what they really do. You know, a development manager, a lot of the time you might think, I never knew what a development manager used to do. Really slightly naive. And then I got to know, I was like, oh my goodness, they're really quite important, because I can work with them to maybe, you know, garner sponsorship. You know, you can expand and the whole production potentially. But if you don't know who you're talking to, who you should talk to, then, you know, it's tricky. So definitely see as much as you can, talk to as many people as possible. So if there's a networking event, and Remi, I know you're good at this.
No, I'm not. I hate networking. I think it's awful.
Don't put yourself down. Just talk to as many people as possible. You know, it could be a tiny charitable event. All of a sudden, there's someone from the Scottish government there who is doing a new committee, is sort of leading a new committee on the topic you might be doing a not-for-profit production for. It's just people. It is a people industry. So I
But do
can't.
you think when you've got, let's say, okay, someone who, okay, I want to go into producing, but but they don't know where to start. Is it, I think, do you think that it would be very useful for them to go with very little things initially, like to go kick off or start with a scratch night and then see how that works? Or do you think, you know what, forget it, just go for funding applications instead?
It's a really that you know that's an what a nitty gritty question, Remy. That's really nitty gritty. There's a couple of elements really. I think so you're starting out. I think I learnt my trade
Yeah,
through jumping in the deep end with a smaller company. You
right.
jump in, and because I'd done work with the young Vic, I'd done work with Pluto La Vie, which was a
Yeah,
physical theatre company, which was
yeah.
a brilliant show at the Traverse. But it was a smaller company. It just had brilliant connections with the
Hmm.
Traverse and things.
Yeah.
Um, when you're suddenly faced with
Hmm.
contracts, I think for someone starting out, and certainly with myself, I was a little bit wary of them, quite
Yeah,
rightly. You
yeah.
have to really attention to detail, but
Hmm.
they're not that scary once you start reading really closely. You know, so
Yeah,
little things like that, budgets.
yeah.
You know, if
Budgets.
you're like you're saying, you know, if you're going to start, I certainly recommend starting smaller. You know, they do
Yeah,
say, you know, on the commercial side, for instance, there are brilliant organizations like Stage One.
yeah,
Look it up. Or like I said, Stage One, look it up. If you're a
yeah,
commercial producer, it's just the starting point. It's incredible.
yeah,
It's got all the resources. But
yeah,
they say, don't do a musical. Don't do a musical for your first show, commercial show. It's too big. You will not know enough people. You won't
yeah,
understand the little things about having to be a commercial producer for a certain amount of time before
yeah,
you legitimately hire actors
yeah.
for that. And it's it's sort of little things like that. But start a little bit smaller, absolutely,
Hmm.
and it'll come very quickly because it's like Amanda Chin
Right.
at the Dundee Dundee Rep. She wasn't. She was at Scottish Dance Theatre, which was
Yeah,
based at Dundee Rep, and she said, "Ed, you call yourself a producer?" And I was just starting out, and I was like, "Well,
yeah,
yeah, I do, Amanda. But why? I mean, surely it's the same as being a general manager."
yeah,
And you know, for a couple of years, I was like, Amanda, I think you're right. I'm just all I'm doing is just general management of a theatre company.
yeah,
But it wasn't quite true, and I have ultimate respect for Amanda. And it was just a different term.
yeah.
A producer, the ultimate thing really is you have an idea
Hmm.
and you have to find the money.
Hmm.
It's either you find it commercially, you find
Hmm.
it through funding, sponsorship, through charitable means.
Yeah,
Um, so there's different avenues,
yeah,
but a producer, I do believe, does a lot of general management. They have to know about COVID safety. They have to massively know about risk assessment, all of
hmm,
those things. If you're starting out, you have to be very careful, but all the information's out there. It's all out
yeah,
there. You go to places like the Federation of Scottish Theatre. They
yeah.
are there for you. You go to state there's the organisation Stage One. You go
Hmm.
to equity. You
Yeah,
know, there are just there are places out there, and
yeah.
they will give you a risk assessment template.
Right.
And then you can, you know, if it's not quite right for you, if you're doing an outdoor show, then you can adapt it for an outdoor show. If you're doing a black box production, brilliant. If you're
Hmm.
doing a big theatre, then this isn't right for you. You know, it's a
Yeah,
different thing. But
yeah.
um,
And why do you think so? As I was saying in my, recent episode, I wrote it, I'm in it in my solo show, but then I just didn't know where to start. And, I was talking about, being really completely feeling helpless, and then we have a conversation, and then you helped me. You said, Remi, okay, I can, maybe look at your application, and that was very, very helpful. Why do you think it is so hard for actors or writers to write these things? I mean, it is possible, but where do you think, what's the difficulty, or how can people overcome it? What's your point of view?
No, I get it. I get it. It's very difficult. It's very difficult.
Hmm.
You go on to the Arts Council of England website. You log on to their grant. This is one example. You log
Yeah,
on to their Grantium funding portal.
yeah,
All that means is you log on to their funding website and you apply for money. But
yeah,
all of a sudden, it's slightly more complicated.
yeah,
To be fair, they might be giving you 10,000, they might be giving you £60,000. So they need it
yeah,
to be very formal. They need it to be absolutely correct. They need every, I's dotted, whatever,
yeah.
T's crossed. But if you're an artist and you're trying to make the work as well as get the funding for it,
Hmm.
I always, I mean, this is why I thought it was quite, it's always been very, very useful because I did that training. I've been an actor, I've been a performer, I've done it.
Yeah.
So I'm there putting myself in that position. And especially, I think this, when it came back to when you approached me, which is where I think you're coming from, I knew exactly where you were when you were asking me and you said, Ed, I just need a hand. I need a step up. Can you help? We had a really long conversation. I think I got a bit, not scary, but I was
You
just,
were like, Remi, how can I help?
yeah, I was like a bit stern maybe, but I was like, I just really wanted to help because we'd had that connection in the past. We'd had that connection. And so it was very much right. And a lot of the time people come to me as a producer, people come to me and they say, I've got an idea. I need funding. What do I do? So I would say, rather
Yeah.
like I did to you, what I need or where we start is always about it's the idea. So what's the artistic idea? It has
Hmm.
a lot of merit. It's
Hmm.
for as many people as possible, so as wide a demographic as possible. Yeah, and if you're talking in equality, diversity, and inclusion,
Yeah.
massively. We're talking. I mean, that's one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
But it is about the arts. So
Yeah.
you all of a sudden you're faced with this massive form. You're asked about all the figures. What should you include? What should you not
Oh my
include?
God.
And
The Excel sheet.
I know. Do you remember?
I
It, it,
remember
it was
when
it was it
you
was
sent me that Excel sheet. That was, I think I was still in that coffee shop. Look, Mum, no hands. I think you sent it to me right away. And I remember I looked at it and I was, I just didn't even know. I was happy to have it. And when I opened it, I thought I have no idea what I'm even looking at. It kind of then slowly made sense when I was doing the application. But initially, when I looked at it, it was like it was a different language. It's like I don't even know what I need to do here.
no, absolutely. It's. I mean, for a challenging example would
Yeah,
be, for instance, in a budget. Obviously a budget around a small show, a big show.
yeah,
I mean, because an artist can put in for up to £100,000. Absolutely fine, absolutely fine.
yeah.
But what the Arts Council of England want to know is, does that artist have the managerial skills? And
Mm-hmm.
so usually, if it was that size of budget, they'd insist on a general manager, a producer, someone to
Yeah,
guide and help them.
yeah,
But even if the artist was massively skilled at maths, should we say, they'd still they'd be wanting to know about holiday pay. What is the equation of holiday pay? Is it 7/13 of 6 days or something similar? I'm not great at that grammar, but you're talking. It's rather strange fact,
Yeah.
and it's to do obviously. I said not necessarily obviously. It's to do with agreements. So
Yeah.
you have agreement with equity that for a week worked,
Yeah.
you owe a certain amount of holiday pay. So how do you work
Yeah.
that holiday pay out? You go to the agreement, and the agreement quite clearly says, but if
Yeah.
you haven't thought, oh, I should go to the agreement, and then the agreement will say, and then I'll pop it in, and
Mm-hmm.
then overtime. So overtime, oh my goodness, how much overtime would I need on a
Mm-hmm.
show or all these things? And I think this is where we talked, uh, it's just once you've done it once.
Yeah, that is true. Once you've done it once, it becomes clearer. It's very, very, for me, when I did another one, it became very straightforward.
What I'd like to say, if to everyone who's watching, if you're going to do this, get through the first one, ask for
Hmm.
help, ask Remi, ask me, ask Remi for
No,
my number.
no, no, no. Like, go to Ed
We'll,
Littlewood
we'll
people.
send you we'll send you a template, a budget template, not an Arts Council of England template, which is absolutely fine,
Yeah,
just doesn't have the sort of the fine detail that they need. So if you put in, I don't want to get too technical,
yeah,
but if you have one budget line,
yeah,
for that one budget line, that's absolutely fine. But what they need to see as well, because you think, oh, I think, £210, and you've worked it out through the AA app for petrol, say,
hmm,
£210 should be enough. But what the Arts Council want to see is,
hmm,
how did you work that out? So
yeah,
you give three different examples. You give the AA roadmap, you give Google Maps, and then you give another petrol, petrol fare. I think it's called another website. You have
yeah.
to evidence everything, and the slightest thing they'll pull you up on, and that's why do one. It's very tricky, but we're here for you. We're really super here for you. And then the next time, it does get
It's
easier because
that
you
is true.
know,
That
you
is,
know what they're looking
yeah.
for.
But it's very interesting because when I remember when we spoke back and when I was there and look, mum, no hands, and I said it in the previous episode. It didn't even cross my mind that anyone can even look at an application for a couple of days, because for me it was so overwhelming. And I thought, how can someone find that not overwhelming? But then, of course, if you do it on a regular basis, it becomes, quite clear to you what people write. But at that time when we spoke, that notion of like what you can look at the application for 2 or 3 days and help me. I could, it didn't even cross my mind, but you do that, which is great because not everyone can afford
Well,
someone
I
to
mean,
pay the full application.
so you pay you. I asked you to pay me a fee, should we say? To look it over for 3 days and give
Yeah.
feedback. Basically, give you feedback because I think what I'd missed earlier, what I was going to say, amongst everything else, was that it's your idea is
Mm.
really important. So the questions about equality, diversity, and inclusivity, and other quite and the environment at the moment is massively important to the Arts
Yeah.
Council. There are certain things that are really, really important, quite rightly.
Yeah.
So if you, that's not good though. And so I can write that as a producer. I've seen other applications. I've worked on lots and lots of applications. I can
Hmm.
outline very, very quickly and simply what our policies are.
Yeah.
We have 15 or so, up to date policies about COVID, about our EDI policies, and
Yeah.
all of that. What is very difficult for a producer a lot of the time to get their head around is the idea of the actual
Yeah.
concept of the piece of art. And that is just copy. A lot of the time it's
Yeah.
copy, and making sure that's really tight.
Yeah.
You only have sometimes, I can't remember. Can you remember, Remi? It's 500 characters. So it's not words, it's something like that.
Oh
Characters.
yeah.
And
500
so
characters. Yeah.
you're squeezing in
Yeah.
your whole beautiful, beautiful idea into essentially maybe 3 very short paragraphs. Short
Yeah.
paragraphs.
And bullet
And
points.
it has to grasp, and no
Yeah.
offense, it has to grasp me first if I'm looking over it, but it has
Yeah.
to grasp the panel of Ace.
Yeah.
They need to go, wow, this will transform a community, a whole community. And you've got 3 short paragraphs to do that. It's really tricky. So
It is.
there's a technique, but if the idea is there and it's a strong idea, which this was, with Intruder, oh, it just blows you away. It's, it makes it a lot easier. So
Yeah.
even when you condense it right down,
Yeah.
the idea that it's still powerful, it's still there. If you've got a massive community project, and it makes it a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
But it's a skill. I don't.
It's yeah, yeah. It's an interesting thing, to be quite honest. Yeah, but you touched on many important things. But it's also very important to know that if anyone is, needs any help, you can people can find you at littlewood.com, and then can ask for help, and you can help people for a couple of days or look through the application like it was in my case.
Absolutely, absolutely. Please, just it's. I
It
want
was
art to be
it was
made.
very helpful. Although that didn't really guarantee that I was actually I remember I was quite gutted, and I was like, oh my God, why? Because I think you were busy on another production. And I was thinking, hoping that, oh, maybe Ed will help me. But then you were busy on another production, so you couldn't.
It was tough too for
Yeah.
things, wasn't it?
Yeah, but what happened? So the application wasn't a sign or some kind of evidence that you would be part of the production. No, what happened? Why Ed became and how you became part of the production of Intruder? That will be in the next couple of episodes, because it's actually quite an interesting story. But then helping me with the application was great, but that didn't, guarantee that you are part of the project, and the listeners of the podcast will find out how did that actually happen that you joined. What were the circumstances that under what circumstances you joined the team. Anyway, so we've been talking. It's been great, and thank you so much for sharing all your insight and tips. And hopefully, some people find it useful. Anyone who wants to go into producing will find it inspiring, motivating. Maybe some of the answers will become clearer. If you need any help, you can go to Ed and find him, or you can email me and I will refer you to him, and he'll be more than willing to help you, lovely guy. And that'll be it for this episode of Intruder Theatre in the Making podcast. Ed, thank you so much for speaking to me.
No problem, Remi. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. You're doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
Like everyone, it's brilliant. I love it. That's why
Thank
I
you.
wanted
Thank
to.
you so much. Thank you for this interview, and I'll speak to the listeners next time, and that'll be episode 20, and I'll be focusing more on Arts Council England applications. So stay well, stay safe, and I'll speak to you next time. Bye for now.